Hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking and Barry back again, and oh hey, Sanji's here. Of course, we will have another episode of Sanji's existential crisis already in progress during this chapter. It's kind of like a soap opera inside of the One Piece manga, kind of. But before we get to that, I should mention, it's the end of the first week of November, which you all know what that means. That's right, it's time to kick off the Christmas season. I apologize, I'm a little bit late to the party here. I know normal people start celebrating Christmas in August, and here we are in early November already. But anyway, Elf Tekking is back with vengeance. Alright, so this will be One Piece Chapter 1031 review titled Warriors of Science. I'm sorry, Warrior of Science. Singular, not plural. You know, grammar is really the proper foundation stones for all of existence. But yeah, Warrior of Science. I'll tell you what, if there was ever an opportunity to have a crossover chapter with One Piece and Dr. Stone, this is the chapter title it should be. In fact, I'm pretty sure there was a chapter of Dr. Stone titled Warrior of Science, and even if there isn't, there probably will be by the end of that manga. Anyway, cover page is absolutely breathtaking this time, okay? Oda does a double-page cover spread, it's in color, and it has all of the number 2s of various pirate crews and organizations in One Piece, okay? So we have Silver's Rayleigh, the second in command under Gold D. Roger himself. Oh, wait! Silver's Rayleigh, Gold Roger. Oh my god, I just got that. Did you guys know that? Oda, you are clever with these secrets. That might actually be the secret to the One Piece after all. Man, I don't know if I might be the only person that figured that out. I gotta do a video about that later. Anyway, then we have Ben Beckman, second in command to Shanks. We don't really see Shanks' crew honestly at all, and even rarer in like color spreads. So it's really cool to see Ben Beckman in color. He's got like just pure white hair, right? And he's just really cool. He's got the scar, he's got his gun and everything like that. Then we have King, who's of course second in command under Kaido, Katakuri under Big Mom right there. We got Killer with a beard. Remember, Killer does in fact have a beard, and he's under Eustace Captain Kidd. Marco under Whitebeard. Sabo is there under Dragon, Revolutionary Army. Shiryu under Blackbeard right over here. And then at the bottom, we see Zoro, who's of course the number 2. He's the pirate hunter. He's the vice captain essentially of the Straw Hats, and Zoro's like there in the center holding Enma, and it's like really cool. And then behind Zoro, we have Beppo, who's just hanging out like yeah, I'm Beppo, I'm a bear, how you doing? Right now, I'm not saying anything against Beppo or anything, but yeah, Beppo would have been the second in command of the Heart Pirates, because when you think of the Heart Pirates, you got Law, you got Beppo, you got Sachi and Penguin, and then Jean Bart. There's some other members, there's like 20 members of Law's crew, including Panda Man in some iterations, but I don't know, you got Rayleigh, Ben Beckman, King Katakuri, Killer, Marco, Sabo, Shiryu, Zoro, and then Beppo to top them all off. I have a feeling Beppo may in fact be the weakest out of all of them, but you never know, because Beppo, he's a martial arts polar bear mink, and he is a mink, so he would have Sulong. We've just never seen it. Beppo might be pretty strong here, okay? Beppo might at least be maybe stronger than Killer or Marco. Maybe even stronger than Ben Beckman or Rayleigh. It's just, you know, you never think of it in that kind of context. You got all these really strong number 2s, and then Beppo's there, who's never really shown any crazy display of strength, but you just never realize, right? Anyway, we continue where we left off last chapter. If you need a little bit of a refresher, Kid and Law jacked Big Mom up! Yeah, so they both awaken their devil fruits, the Op fruit and the Jiki no Mi respectfully, and then, you know, Law used his K room to stab Big Mom and do some internal damage, and then Kid followed that up by using a sign with his magnet fruit to magnetically charge Big Mom and send all these girders and like steel beams and everything right slamming into her at super high speed, okay? So the chapter starts off and all of the members of the Beast Pirates have kind of cleared out of this area. Because of Kid's ability, all of the support beams got ripped out of the surrounding buildings and the roof just kind of collapsed, and so there's just this big open area now, you know, in the floor that they're fighting, where it's just a giant pile of rubble, like it's devastating, okay? And one of the members of the Beast Pirates, I don't know who it is because Oda does like that, it's like a far away shot with somebody like shouting over it, so I do not know who it is, but whoever was the person that said this line needs to immediately just go away forever, okay? Because there's somebody, I want you to imagine this, Kid uses a sign, giant crash, it's it's punk Clash. I guess it was Clash because of the band The Clash, and it's like a reference, okay, because Kid is very punk rock and everything like that. But there's this massive crash or clash of metal. Everybody runs away, and as the dust settles, everybody's just quiet as can be, can hear a pin drop. And then all of a sudden, in the chaos, somebody just says, "Wow, even Big Mom couldn't survive that!" Find that person! Find him! You know? That's right up there next to that dude, what was his name? Oh yes, Ask D Question. The dude that was in the crowd during Roger's execution that was just like, wow, everybody's really quiet. This is really, really intense. Oh yeah, hey Pirate King, where'd you keep your treasure? And Roger's like, "Oh, matey, I'm so glad that somebody asked. My whole plan really developed on somebody actually saying that at me execution, matey. Well, if you want me treasure, you just have to find it. It's somewhere out there in the Grand Line. All right, yo ho ho ho, blow the man down. All right, cut my head off, boys. Shing!" And then, yeah, so that one dude, he's like, "Even Big Mom couldn't survive that." It's like, damn it, Jim! And then, as, you know, perfect timing, all of the steel beams and everything get like rumbled and like shot apart, and then Big Mom emerges. There is a brief scene with Kid and Law. They are extremely exhausted. They're not unconscious or anything, but they both hit the ground after they use these techniques. And remember, each of them have only used one technique in the awakening form, all right? So Law, I guess Law technically used two. He used his K-Room or his Kuromu, and then he also used the anesthesia with Kikoku, and then Kid used a sign, right? So they both hit the ground. They're very exhausted. They start panting and just, oh boy, that was crazy. And so Law is like, hey, so that was the awakening of your Jiki no Mi, the magnet fruit. Also, this is the first time canonically in the story that Kid's fruit is mentioned by name, which is the funny thing there is that Oda just assumed he'd already done that before, and in one of the last SBSs, I think it was SBS 99, somebody asked him what Kid's fruit was, and he's like, "Oh, it's the Jiki no Mi. Didn't I already mention that somewhere? Oh, look, oh well, it looks like I didn't. Whatever, it's the Jiki no Mi." So he's like, "I guess I'll mention that somewhere in the story." Well, this is the somewhere in the story, so it all goes full circle. But yeah, so Law asks him, "Hey, what is the range or how long does your magnetism last?" You know, one of the questions I asked last week, you know, because some electromagnets can last like years or even longer. And so he asked Kid this, and Kid is just like, "Hey, don't get too friendly with me, Trafalgar. Do you think I would give you all my secrets?" And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a good point, because at the end of this battle, they're going to go back to being enemies. You know, Law and Kid are going to go back to being rivals. Probably the same thing with Luffy. They're probably going to go their separate ways on the last stretch of the Grand Line. So probably a good idea that Kid doesn't reveal all of his tricks to Law right away. It's like, oh yes, well, it turns out I can actually use my magnetism for this amount of time. It might be tied to his lifespan. Maybe the same thing with like Law. Law can make a room as big as he wants in theory, but the bigger that he makes it, the more of his lifespan gets shortened. So maybe it's the same thing with Kid. Maybe Kid could assign a magnetic charge on somebody for like several months or even years, but it would take years and months off his lifespan in, you know, in exchange for that. Well, anyway, as they're sitting there kind of just hoping that Big Mom is taken down, the steel beams begin to get knocked out of the pile, and Big Mom begins to emerge. And it doesn't seem like she's magnetically charged anymore, because like I said, Big Mom still had all that. If she got up and she tried to throw the steel beam away, it would just like go right back and hit her in the face, and it's not doing any of that. She's just knocking it all away. And so it seems like the magnetic charge might have ended, or at least abated a little bit. And so she gets up from the rubble, and all of the Beast Pirates are like, "She's getting up from the rubble! Damn it, Jim, why did you have to say that?" It's like, whatever. They just start running away, of course. And then Big Mom, she just does her soul pocus. She is very, very pissed off right now. She's all in silhouette, her eyes are glowing, and she's just like, "Life or Oshiruko?" And I like to think that this group of Beast Pirates right here are the same exact group of Beast Pirates earlier in the arc at the beginning of the Golden Kagura, when Luffy and Zoro first infiltrated, and they were like, "We have a giant pot of Oshiruko they made in the kitchen. Ah, that stuff sucks. It's way too sweet. We can't eat that with booze." And they like kicked it over on Luffy's head, and that's what got Luffy all pissed off. I like to think these are the exact group of people, because they're like, "Hey, Oshiruko or life? Aw, crap, she's using soul pocus. Do we have any Oshiruko? I remember seeing a giant pot." He's like, "Yeah, but it's all gone. We remember we all dumped it out." Like, oh, that's right. Well, gentlemen, It's been an honor serving with you on this crew that worships a giant dragon duck god. 10 hut! And they all just basically accept their fate because Big Mom sucks out all of their souls. Just like, and it sucks out their souls. She takes them, she throws them into a bunch of random objects to power them up, also powers up Hera and Prometheus and Napoleon in the process. However, Big Mom states that just the souls of these small fry aren't going to be good enough to take down Kid and Law. So then she proceeds, we didn't even know she could do this, she proceeds to rip out part of her own lifespan, a year's worth to be exact, and then consumes it. And then she gets even bigger. That's right, she's a bigger mom. And so she gets not like super kaiju sized or anything like that, but I would imagine Big Mom might very well be roughly the size of like a giant now, okay, after consuming her lifespan. Big Mom's height was originally 8.8 meters. There's lots of 8s that are involved with Big Mom. You could even see that with her bounty. It's 4,388,000,000, because the 8s in this sense are read as haha, which is mother, mama in Japanese. Okay, so there's lots of 8s with her, and the shortest giants were mentioned to be 12 meters tall. So after consuming her lifespan, I like to think she's at least that tall now. She might be 12, 13 meters tall, and so she's really big, okay? And it's implied that if she wanted to, she could consume even more of her lifespan to make her even bigger and bigger. We don't know how long she's actually going to live, or if she's even done this before. She seems to know that she was able to do it, so she might have consumed her own lifespan before. Big Mom right now is 68 years old, so I guess after consuming the lifespan, she's technically 69. Nice. So, I don't know though, she might have done this before. She might be, you know, biologically now, she might be in her 70s or 80s, depending on how often she's used this before. She did state to Kid and Law, she's like, I have not felt this level of pain in decades! You will all fall before my blade! You know? So, she said decades there. That makes me think that maybe the last time she felt pain, maybe not as bad as, you know, what it was back then, but with Kid and Law right here, might have been the God Valley incident. Might have been when the Rocks crew went up against Garp and Roger and their crews and like the Marines and everything. Maybe Big Mom had a very crushing defeat there. I would imagine that was probably the last time in Big Mom's life that she might have had a battle on that level where like it almost killed her, okay? I mean, I guess she could have fought Roger at other points in time and stuff like that, but she said decades, so I'm assuming at least maybe the time of Goldie Roger or even before that during the God Valley incident, okay? Now, once again, I don't think that the pain that she's feeling here is the same as that. Not to say that like Law and Kid working together are like on the same level as like Roger and Garp were working together, but she does mention that like it's a lot of pain, okay, and it got her to the point where she consumed her own lifespan, which I imagine she probably doesn't like to do very often because the more she does that, the closer she comes to, you know, dying. However, remember in One Piece we have like superhumans like Dr. Kureha that are like 140, and there's other characters that can live really long, so I can't imagine Big Mom would live to be like 80 or 90, like in our world, like the average lifespan for somebody. I imagine she would probably live over 100 easily, so she has some extra lifespan to spare. But then again, she's actually consuming the raw life energy from herself, so I don't know if the rules are different there, but suffice to say, she eats part of her own soul, she gets even bigger, and she begins to stomp toward Law and Kid. And Law and Kid, they're exhausted, but they do not back down. They're just there, catching their breath, and they kind of just get back up, and they're like, Law's like, unless we defeat her, I can't find out about the true history of this world. The Void Century, the secret of the D. And then Kid gets up and he's just like, yeah, we're gonna go all out against her. Even if we die trying, we're gonna beat her, right? So at this point, it's kind of like, you're too far in, right? You're too far into the fight, you're too committed. There is no retreat, there is no backing down. It's like when Alucard fought against Galamoth in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. You gotta keep trying until you bring the giant golden lion thing, lightning bolt, stupid spamming thing down, right? So, here we are right now. Kid gets up, he's just like, yeah, we're not backing down, we're not turning back, we're just doing this. If we die trying, I guess that's how we go down. In fact, I can't imagine Kid, like, you know, if I die going down, at least I'm dying going down fighting against a freaking Yonko, right? So, Trafalgar, let's do this. So, I don't know, we don't see the rest of their battle, we just see kind of like the backside of it as the samurai and the beast pirates are fighting behind Big Mom, and they just notice that the entire, like, it's still, the fire is raging. Every chapter we kind of get an update on the flames, but it's really raging now. Eventually, eventually it's going to get to the point, I imagine, where the floor and the roof just starts caving in, because, like, eventually, you know, plus all the beams and stuff that got ripped out, eventually, like, the building is just going to collapse, like, one on top of each other, right? Like, eventually that's going to happen. We see Yamato running off to the Iwato chamber, or the cavernous chamber, where Apu and Drake are, so we see them. And Drake has given a very carefully thought out response to Scratchman and Apu's little idea of an alliance, you know? And so the response there is, screw you, I'm not following you, I'm not doing what you want. And I think that's a pretty good option. For one thing, Drake being a member of SWORD, but also Apu has been sort of a traitor to everybody else he's kind of involved himself with. You know, even if it is technically not an alliance, even if the way Apu phrased it was like, it's more of just like, you know, a mutual agreement to not fight each other, kind of. Drake is like, you know what, screw you, I'm not even listening to you, I'm just gonna fight you, okay? So Drake starts fighting against Apu, and Apu's using his Otonomi, his sound fruit, like the Scratch and Dawn, trying to hurt Drake. Drake is just dodging them expertly, though, okay? And so he admits that, like, oh, okay, your power is actually really easy to understand. It seemed complicated at first with the sound ability and everything, but it's actually really simple. So your ability only works on those that can hear the sounds that you're making, okay? So that's the one weakness. So if you just plug your ears or wear earphones or earmuffs or something, the ability just won't work. You have to hear it first as the recipient. But the other thing is, they actually follow your line of sight, so it's actually very simple. So as long as I just literally avoid your line of sight by just a little bit, the attack will not hit me, okay? So if he uses the Scratch technique, which is like the blade to try to cut you, even if you hear it, if he's not looking directly at you, so I guess the way it would work is if Scratchman Apu is looking in this direction and uses Scratch, if you just walk over here, even if you still hear the attack, it won't hit you. It goes straight. So it follows your line of sight, and then anybody that hears it can be afflicted by it in that line of sight. Now, that could still be very devastating if there was like a bunch of enemies all lined up in front of you, like in front of your line of sight, and you're like, you know, Dawn! And then boom, like a bunch of people would all feel it at the same time. But in a one-on-one fight, it's actually not that good, and especially against an opponent that can move really fast like Drake. So Drake is dodging without really much of an effort there, and Apu is just like, yeah, well, you were screwed anyway because I got these three numbers, you know, having my back. Have you not noticed these three giants amongst giants behind me, right? So right when you think that the numbers are gonna like get up finally, numbers 1, 2, and 3, and they're gonna like fight against Drake, I'm like, oh man, is that where this fight is going? Is that what we're getting? Boom! Yamato bursts into the room as her, you know, Makami form, the full wolf form, and this is actually really, really funny because first off, Apu is really good at thinking on his feet here in terms of treachery. It's actually quite impressive. Apu immediately sees Yamato and is like, the first thought he has is, ah, Yamato. Alright, well, the whole thing with Drake didn't work out. Hey, Yamato, I actually have something to say to you! And Yamato's like, get away from me, Apu. I'm no longer working with Kaido. I don't have any allegiance to my father. You know, because Yamato still thinks Apu is, you know, under Kaido, under Queen. And Apu's like, oh, well, if that's the case, I actually have a great deal for you. And then Yamato and Drake begin to fight, and just like, because, you know, Yamato still thinks Drake is just a member of the Tobiropo, and so they're clashing there, and Drake is like, no, you don't understand, Yamato, I was undercover the whole time. I'm a traitor. I'm not actually a member of the Tobiropo. And Yamato's like, oh, okay, sorry, Drake, I gotta go. Just like, just all this shit happens. Like, these characters are really, really good at thinking on their feet. Like, Apu doesn't miss a beat. He knows immediately, like, okay, I can't get Drake to work for me, so I'll try to get Yamato. And Drake's just like, I'm a secret agent with the Marines. I'm like James Bond, kind of. And Yamato's like, oh, okay, later, I have someplace to be. I gotta get going. And so she just leaves, right? So that's pretty funny. Now, here's something really interesting, though. As Yamato bursts into the room, one of the numbers, Fuga, number 2, the big dude with like the Ashura Doji haircut that was eating that big piece of mutton last chapter, he sees Yamato and immediately just like, you know, runs toward her, like crashing through the walls, chasing after her. And Apu is like, what the, Fuga, where are you going? Ibi, Zanki, get up and go after him, you know? And so Ibi is like, Ibi? And they get up and they go. Now, I did not realize this. I believe it was Mr. Morge that mentioned this in his review, and some other, you know, One Piece YouTubers mentioned this. The prevailing theory, and this is actually something really cool, the 3 top numbers, so Ibi, Fuga, and Zaki, are the 3 samurai that we saw locked in the cave alongside Yamato. And the idea is that Fuga is actually Ushimaru. Now, I don't know if this is going to pan out. It's just a theory, but it's a cool theory, right? I mean, it's pretty nice. It's a pretty good one. So because of the idea that Yamato was locked in the cave with the 3 samurai, that's the reason Fuga recognized Yamato and immediately went after her, okay? And so the other ones don't really seem the same way, but they're the other 2 samurais. The ones that was like really thin and lanky would be Ibi, and then the other one that was like short and stout would also be Zanki. And those were probably also the other, we didn't get the names for those samurai, but we would assume that those are the daimyo of the other regions of Wano, the daimyos of like the Udon region and the Kibi region, and Ushimaru was the daimyo of the Ringo region. We know Yasuie, of course, was the daimyo of Hakumai who escaped, and then Odin was already killed, and he was the daimyo of Kuri, right? Now, there are a few problems with this. One of the most notable ones that I have is that, well, why didn't the other 2 numbers, like, recognize Yamato? How come it was only Fuga that recognized Yamato? That's one thing. But also, when we got information regarding Hacha, who's number 8, it was mentioned that he was 180 years old and that he was, you know, created on Punk Hazard. Okay, so it seems to imply, I mean, that's just with Hacha, so each number might be different, but that seems to imply that the numbers have been around for a very long time, because it would be weird if they started with 10 and then they moved down to like 10, 9, 8, so Hacha would be older than numbers 1, 2, and 3, rather than younger. They'd have to be counting down. I'm not really sure how that would work. Then again, it's possible that maybe like these giants were being experimented on already on Punk Hazard, but maybe they took the DNA or the lineage factor of the samurai from the cave and just added it to them, because we don't know how the numbers came into existence exactly. We just know they were experimented on at Punk Hazard for probably centuries, even before Caesar's time. Maybe Vegapunk was still there, if Vegapunk is some sort of like 400, 500-year-old cyborg, you know, augmenting his own existence with like science and stuff. Not regular science, of course. This is regular science. Boring, right? This is science! You know, science is like a giant, like, robot dinosaur that, like, breathes fire and crushes a town. That's science! And this is just science. So Vegapunk would, of course, be science! And then, so maybe he would do that, right? So, you know, some questions there regarding exactly how the numbers are created, but I do notice, I mean, just in terms of the similarities between them, I mean, they're monstrous now, they're giants, but their similarities are definitely there. It's just, I guess, a question of how much of their personalities was in there, or how were the numbers created. Maybe they were taken from ancient giant, like fossilized ancient giant remains, and then they added the lineage factor from the other samurai. Maybe the numbers do not indicate their birth order. Maybe their numbers indicate just their literal strength. So 1, 2, and 3 are the strongest, and 8 doesn't mean maybe he is older than 1, 2, and 3. He's just weaker than them. I don't know, but the possibility is definitely there, okay? So it's interesting. We don't get anything more with them, but, you know, there's a theory, and we can talk about that later. Okay. Also, at the end there, Apu does try to escape as Yamato is rushing toward the explosives, the armory, and the numbers go after her. Apu just tries to get away, and Drake chases after him. So Drake is not just like, alright, I'm not accepting your deal, I'm gonna fight you. No, Drake is kind of like, no, you gotta stop right here, okay? I don't know if maybe Drake has the idea that's like, no, if I let him get away, he's gonna do something else underhanded. He might manage to join up with another Yonko at some point. Also, Drake is a secret agent, and so it's probably the less people that know he's a secret agent that get off the island alive, probably the better. So he's like, no, I'm stopping you right now. I'm ending Apu. Alright, and so Drake goes after him. Alright, now we cut over to the second floor where we see Robin and Brooke. The Minks have arrived and are actually holding back the 2 members of Cypher Pole Zero that were chasing after them. You know, the ones that were like walking through the flames. That's where they were heading. Should have kind of expected that, because that was the whole idea. That was their mission. Like, mission objective number 1, if Kaido were to fall, you know, government ships come in and open Wano forcefully. You know, mission objective number 2, capture Nico Robin. So the CP0 have left the indestructible reception room and are now heading there. The one short dude with the mask, and then the other one that has like, it's like a tribal mask, but he has to like hold it up with like a stick, you know, that dude. So they have arrived and they're just tossing the Minks around. Like, they're not even like, it doesn't seem to be that much effort, okay? They're just picking them up and throwing them away. And the Minks are like, these CP0 agents are really strong. Bone-chan, Robin-chan, get out of here, right? And so Robin and Brooke begin to run. Remember, the fire is still raging, and Robin mentions to Brooke, she says, we really need to get out of here because the members of CP0 that wear the masks are in a different league. Even amongst the elites of the elite that is already the CP0, the mask wearers are even stronger. They're the elite of the elite of the elite, all right? Now, that's fascinating. That is really interesting here for a few reasons. Number one, I guess that does mean that this short dude right here, this dude does outrank Rob Lucci, which was weird because in the conversation they had over the Den Den Mushi a couple chapters ago, it seemed like Lucci was this guy's boss, and I always assumed he was like the boss of CP0, but it's like, no, the way the conversation was going, it seemed Rob Lucci was kind of like giving him orders. But no, it seemed like, no, this guy is stronger. Now, maybe it doesn't go by strength. Maybe it's like Rob Lucci, kind of like how Spondum was the superior of CP9, but he was the weakest out of all of them. It might be something like that. Like Rob Lucci might be like, you know, superior in terms of status, like orders, like he's their boss, but this dude is still stronger than Rob Lucci, perhaps. Because Rob Lucci, Stussy, Kaku, Spondum, they don't wear masks, except for that one time at Dressrosa where Rob Lucci was kind of wearing like half of a mask, but I don't think that's what Robin was referring to. I think when Robin said the masks, it's all the members of CP-H0 that wear the full mask over their face. Like, you can't see any of their facial features, right? So, you know, these guys right from Dressrosa, also the dude with like the tribal mask that he's holding up over his face, those are on like a completely different level, okay? So Brooke kind of grabs Robin and starts jumping around the hall because he's very light to try to escape the flames and get out of there. And she also brings up, like, those were the CP0 agents from Dressrosa. They're very strong. You know, why are they here? You know, we need to get out of there, okay? And it also looks like this member, the guy with the bowler hat, does notice Robin because then he Sorus away to kind of, like, chase after them, okay? So getting over the minks and chasing after Brooke and Robin. So that's the only scene we get there, but very, very interesting. That's another, you know, discussion in and of its own self, right? Okay? Like, what's the structure, the power structure of the CP0? Is it like, because, like, Rob Lucci and Kaku and everybody were just kind of sitting in a room just kind of like giving them orders. Meanwhile, these guys are like the vanguard. Maybe they're like the vanguard of CP0, and then there's like the management of CP0, and they don't really go by power levels. Like the vanguard is stronger, and then there's the orders like from above, right? So not really sure how it's structured, but that is very fascinating indeed. I want to see what they're getting involved now. They're finally fighting. So now I'm like, okay, good. The CP0 are doing stuff. I want to see what they're really capable of here, okay? So now we cut to the last scene of the chapter where we have Sanji running back through Black Maria's brothel area. Okay, so it's on the it's on the eastern or the left brain tower side. It's on like one of the sides of Onigashima, right? So he's running back through that way to try to give Queen the slip. However, we do that thing that Oda does every now and then where we kind of skip over some important information, then we go back immediately. All right. So chronologically, I'll just tell you what happened, okay? Sanji leaves the Golden Kagura Hall. He's freaking out. He's having his crisis of self, like, who am I? I don't want to become a Germa. So he starts running down the hallway toward the pleasure hall, okay? I want to say he didn't plan on going in that direction. It's just the direction he ended up going, but it's Sanji, so subconsciously he probably driven him to the pleasure hall, okay? Anyway, along his way running down the hall, he's sort of like deep in thought. Have you ever done that before where you're just like, you know, out walking or maybe even driving and you're kind of just lost in thought or whatever? Yeah, he's kind of doing that. So he's kind of running down the hall just kind of thinking about like, oh man, I really don't want to turn out like my brothers. There's a woman in the hall that's all by herself and she's a geisha and she's just like, oh, please sir, I'm not involved with Kaido's crew or Orochi. I was just brought from the mainland for the festival. Please don't hurt me. And so then the next thing Sanji knows, the woman is on the ground bleeding out with a wound on her head, like pretty bad, like something struck her. And then that's when Sanji kind of snaps back to reality and he just sees this woman on the ground bleeding out. And then that's where we cut into here, where the women of the brothel are kind of hiding in one of the rooms and they have katanas and stuff and they're just like, stay back, stay back. And they're like holding their swords up to Sanji, like, you injured this poor defenseless woman. How dare you? We're just trying to survive this night. So they're like all holed up in like one of the rooms, like all the courtesans and the geishas that are in the pleasure hall. And Sanji's like, what are you talking about? I never would strike a woman. What are you talking about? I didn't do that. It's like, you're the only one that was with her out in the hall. It had to be you. And then so Sanji doesn't remember. He remembers seeing her and then something happened and he like blacks out and then she's just wounded on the floor. And so Sanji begins to arrive at the conclusion like, oh no, he remembers what happened to Koiset, the woman that was the chef back at the Germa Kingdom when, you know, Niji or the other members of his, of the Germa, of his brothers, just, you know, beat the crap out of her. And so it's just like, oh no, I'm turning into a Germa. I'm actually becoming one of them. Like I guess from Sanji's perspective, he was running and then he saw her and then his Germa took over and then he, like, you know, hit her in the face and she fell down and then he came back to reality, but it's just like, oh no, what did I do, right? So at this point, Queen arrives. Okay, Queen arrives, and he's just like, ah, you've arrived in the pleasure hall. Well, too bad it's closed. Are you done running, Germa? And so Sanji, he kind of stares down Queen, and he has this kind of parallel thought right here. He's just thinking of Luffy and what the Straw Hats mean to him. And Sanji starts thinking like, Luffy, what kind of man do you want me to be on your crew? Do you want me to be the man that runs and hides and, you know, cannot fight any woman and just gets defeated that way, that's helpless against women? Or would you rather have, like, a cold, unfeeling cyborg, modified human that attacks anybody without discrimination? You know, what person do you want on the crew, right? And so he's thinking about this, and Sanji finally arrives at a decision. He takes out his raid suit canister, Stealth Black number 3. Queen gets really giddy, gets really excited, like, oh, is it finally happening? Oh, that's funky, yeah, you're gonna go raid suit time. Sanji takes the canister, throws it to the ground, steps on it, it explodes. It just... And then Queen's like, no, but the science, you know? And so the raid suit is just destroyed, and Sanji kind of lights up a cig, and he's just like, goodbye, raid suit. Goodbye, women's bath. I'll always remember you. And so then he takes out, I guess Queen is just so shocked from what he just did, he allows Sanji to, like, take out Den Den Mushi to contact Zoro really quick. So he takes that out. Zoro is still fighting King outside of Onigashima. They're kind of jumping around, you know, clashing and everything. Zoro has a Den Den Mushi inside of his little stomach warmer thing, and it's like, bet it. He's like, oh man, when did I get a Den Den Mushi on me? Go to voicemail. Oh, hold on. Okay. Yeah, what's going on? I'm fighting a giant pteranodon. Where are you at? And Sanji's just like, yeah, I slipped the Den Den Mushi in your... Actually, you know what? Hold on. I can actually do this without pantomime. Okay, hold on. It's Law's Den Den Mushi, but I guess I could just take off the hat. All right, so it's just like... Sanji's like, yeah, how you doing, Mosshead? Okay, so, I'll make this quick. I slipped this Den Den Mushi into you in case you were in trouble. All right, here's the deal. We're gonna defeat Kaido, right? Like, the final part of this battle's coming up, and Zoro's still fighting. He's like, yeah, of course, obviously we're gonna defeat Kaido. You know, where were you at? He's like, yeah, I understand. Here's the situation, though. After this battle is over, if I'm not like I used to be, if I'm a different person, I want you to just end it. I want you to just cut me down and just end my life. And Zoro, I mean, you know, Zoro and Sanji, rivals, but they've been working together. You know, Sanji would not say something like this as a joke, even to Zoro, you know, and Zoro's a warrior and everything, so he doesn't understand the whole story, of course, but he's like, he gets, like, you know, Sanji is calling him in the middle of a battle to tell him this. This is something important. This is not just something funny or a joke or something. And so Zoro is just like, all right, I don't understand why, but if that's what you want, don't worry, I'll do it. I'll do it gladly. I'll look forward to that. Just make sure you don't die before then. It's like, Sanji's like, all right, cool, we'll do this then. Click, and then he hangs up. All right, and so Sanji, I think at this point realizes, he's like, okay, I don't know what's up with my body. I don't know what happened, but if I seriously did do that to that woman, if I just, you know, struck her and caused her to bleed, if I'm the one that caused that, truly, then... that's it for me. I don't even want to be around anymore. So Sanji realizes, he's like, okay, I have to take out Queen. I have to take out Queen because, you know, he's one of the All-Stars, and so I'm going to get that done no matter what. I'm going to take out Queen. But after that's over, if I'm no longer myself, just end it, right? Now, I don't think Sanji was the one that struck the woman. I think in typical Oda fashion, there's going to be another thing that happened. Like, it could be something goofy for all we know. It could be like the woman was like, oh no, please don't hurt me, and Sanji's just kind of in a daze. He's not really paying attention to anything. And then at that exact moment, I don't know, a piece of rubble fell from the ceiling and, like, struck her on the face and knocked her down, and Sanji's like, huh, what's going on? Oh my god, poor lady, are you okay? You know, it was probably honestly something like that, but it it made Sanji question and bring up his resolve, like just how dedicated he is to his chivalry. Just the idea that he would do something like that, even not consciously, is terrifying to him, and he never wants to live like that, okay? And so he's just like, all right, gotta take out Queen as my last act of loyalty to the Straw Hats and for my friends. This is what I have to do. But after this, well, if it is what it is, Zoro will cut me down. All right. And so Queen is just like, oh, so you finally want to fight me, right? You're done running. And Sanji's like, you know, don't stoke the flames anymore. I'm already white hot. And he activates Diablo Jambe and he uses Hell Memories, which is the same attack he used to defeat Wadatsume, kind of like a combo with Jinbei in the Vagabond Drill back at Fishman Island. And so, boom, he strikes Queen super hard with Diablo Jambe, lights him ablaze, end of chapter, and I believe there is a break next week. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe there was one next week. Okay, so that's the end of the chapter, man, and that was an intense one. That was a pretty intense one. Like I said, the big sort of question there is what's going on with Sanji. He also mentions that the tingling sensation that his body was feeling has ended. So now that makes him think like, oh, okay, is the transformation over? Am I truly now one of the Germa, right, if that's what happened? And so he might really well think that it might be just done, complete, or maybe he might switch back and forth. Like, even if Sanji is like, all right, it's like a werewolf kind of thing, where it's like, I'm normally myself, but every once in a while, I might lose myself and go into this unthinking, you know, emotionless being. And then I don't have any memories of what I do in that state, and then I come back. Like, even if Sanji is like that, he's like, I don't want to live like that, right? So that's why he told Zoro, and I really like the camaraderie there between Zoro and Sanji. Like, Zoro, he doesn't understand anything. He has no idea what's going on with the raid suit and Germa tech. Zoro wasn't there in Totland. He's never met Sanji's siblings. But the fact that Sanji called him while he's in the middle of fighting King and says something that serious, Zoro, as like a fellow warrior on the battlefield, as like a fellow veteran of all these fights, is just like, yeah, all right, if that's what you want, I'll do it. And I can even see, because I think it's all going to resolve in Sanji's favor. Like, Sanji's going to have, like, the upgraded, you know, like, armor, like the exoskeleton, but he's still going to maintain his own consciousness. It's going to be revealed it wasn't really, you know, him that injured the woman. But then there's going to be a funny scene after the battle is over, after Kaido and Big Mom and everybody are defeated. There might be a funny scene where Sanji goes and he's just like, I'm really myself now. I've realized I'm truly myself. The Germa cannot control me. And Zoro shows up behind him and he's just like, all right, you wanted me to cut you down, right? He's like, no, only if I'm not acting like myself. I don't know. You're acting pretty weird. I better do it anyway. Like, it'll be a joke. It'll be like, hey, get off of me. I didn't mean that. So I think that's the way it's gonna pan out. But it was an interesting thing in this chapter. As the situation with Yamato and the numbers could be just a situation with the numbers chasing after Yamato to, like, attack her, but it also could lead into the whole thing like the numbers are, like, at least maybe part of the DNA, part of the lineage factor from the daimyos or the samurai are inside of them, and that might be the thing. If that's the case, Zoro's dad might possibly still be alive, but is a number. So Zoro is related. Zoro's daddy is an ancient giant. Yeah, that's about right. That's about right, right? Yeah, that's about right. Let's see, what else happened in this chapter? CP0, that's a big thing. You know, are we going to find out, like, how they're really going to fight, like, in maybe more advanced forms of the Rokushiki, or maybe see their faces, or the people that we've known before? What's up with that? We don't know. And then the situation with Big Mom fighting Kid and Law. She seems pretty mad. The only thing that might be able to actually work in Kid and Law's favor is maybe there's kind of a kickback to Big Mom using that life technique. And, you know, maybe that's the reason she's never really done it before. Maybe it's a situation where, you know, she absorbs 1 year of her life, she gets super big, but then after it kind of wears off, then she gets kind of winded because she's literally shortening her lifespan in order to do that. So it's like it gives her a big, you know, burst of strength and increases her size, but if, you know, Law and Kid can hold out long enough and maybe use some other awakening techniques, maybe she'll be, like, you know, deflated or, like, defeated, or, like, kind of like in the state Luffy was in after fighting Rob Lucci, like he couldn't move his body. Maybe it might have some kind of detriment to that. So Big Mom's trying to finish the fight very quickly, and if she can't manage that, maybe she won't be able to fight, and so that's how kind of Kid and Law will be able to win. But they're very dedicated, so there's that. And then the situation with Apu and Drake, I think, I don't know, maybe Apu might just manage to escape Onigashima, and maybe we'll see his story arc concluded in another part of this story, or Drake could just finish him off right now. But as in the case with a lot of the supernovas, like, all of the supernovas are still active in the world. None of them are, like, defeated to the point we're never going to see them again, and I don't see that happening with Apu here, right? Like, Beiji had his moment in Totland, but Beiji's still around doing stuff, right? It's not like they're defeated or they're wounded or they've given up the pirate life. Hawkins was cut down, but I think Hawkins is going to survive after this. You know, I don't know if Oda is just going to like, all right, that was Apu's story. He's done for the rest of the story. I got nothing else, you know, left for him. But there might be a scene where Drake like fights him and beats him down, but then, you know, Apu will get up and like somehow manage to escape Onigashima, right? Maybe something like that. Also, Drake's cover is kind of blown at this point because he did announce the whole haul, like I'm a member of, he didn't announce he's a member of SWORD, but he announced that he's a traitor to Kaido, and I think he mentioned he was part of the Marines, or he's working against Kaido. So Drake's cover might be blown if that information leaks to like CP0 and then they spread it to the rest of the world. Drake might not be able to go back to being a pirate after this, you know, or a Marine. He might have to be something else, or just work on his own from now on just with SWORD, and everybody will be looking for him as a traitor from both sides maybe. But yeah, anyway, that was the chapter. Hope you guys really enjoyed. This will be Tekking and Barry signing out. Later, everyone. Ah, it's Christmas time.